Mrs. Ward?
Yes.
Mrs. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. McMahon?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we had, in the middle of our agenda is a school district time discussion, and we have two selectmen with us tonight that would like to at least discuss this now at this point if we can, because there has been some talk back and forth, and going through the minutes I've looked at, I don't remember a vote, Dr. Godomsky, has there been a vote, a formal vote?
There was discussion about it, and I believe that the board agreed to have it on that Saturday as a group, but I don't think that there was a time that was finalized. I think that was.
Well, I think the discussion, I think you and I
Go right
both
ahead.
said, Bruce and I both made a point of saying we would be in agreement to having it at the same time as the town meeting if the school went first. Is that what you recall, Bruce?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it plus, in my own opinion, I'm sorry, I'm only doing this for a little bit. I go to both meetings each year, except for last year, I couldn't make it, but, both meetings are lengthy.
Mhm.
And I think to put the townspeople to, this is my opinion, not the board's opinion, through two lengthy meetings in one day, I think we're either gonna lose crowd, or we're going to get people very tired and maybe not as focused on each budget as presented. That's just my opinion. I don't know how the board feels about this. My suggestion, which is how I feel, would be to have ours the Saturday before and then the Saturday before the town meeting. And we did move to a Saturday. We used to have a Wednesday nights for years.
Right.
But then we had discussion that Wednesday night wasn't right for people to get out at night to attend the meeting. So to make it applicable to everybody, we would have the Saturday before the town meeting. And the town meeting can have theirs, because you don't know what the length of the meeting is going to be, especially getting into discussions of budget. And I don't know how many warrant articles the town has this year. I mean, we have very few, so I'm not sure. But ours could be a long discussion for some, depending on enrollment and all the other parts that are put into this.
The one concern is that I was at the town office last week and I noticed that there was already a flyer and it was posted that we were the second.
Yeah, I saw that too.
That-
And that's all been retracted.
Okay.
That was an error that has been fixed, and we're telling people that that was done erroneously. They should not have done it that way.
Okay.
And we've had multiple, we were at our meeting, the library came in and said, oh, congratulations, we're doing, I'm like, what?
Excuse.
Okay.
Excuse me? I don't remember taking, so we got that all taken care of. It is in December's community calendar. The selectmen are putting another in January saying it was incorrect information.
Okay.
So that way we can all clear that error. We took it off the website. Bruce was paying the taxes.
Yeah, I saw it there.
They saw it there. Those have all disappeared. So hopefully we've nipped that in the bud before it created a huge issue.
We'll repost times when we have the official
Right,
dates.
when we know,
Okay.
like, so if we do decide, if you do it the Saturday before, we'll make sure we start getting that advertised now, so that way everything would be fine. I think as the selectmen, being the baby of the budgets, is that it's very hard for us, and it's purely selfishness, I'm gonna say that right now, is that you have your district meeting, there's a lot of money that people are spending and figuring in their budgets, and then when it comes to our meeting, we have held back the reins for almost 10, 15 years, and unfortunately, those floodgates are getting so pushed that they're gonna start to open up, and now our budget is gonna have to come up, because we do foresee some things that are gonna be a little bit more of an impacting issue for our town budget and not hold it back as long as we've had it. So that's where I think we were all kind of throwing the conversation out there, is that maybe we do a joint meeting day, is that way everything's all at once and everybody has all the information. But I think really it's the biggest is budget hearing time, is get more people out to our budget hearings, so that way those questions and answers can be done then, and then when the town meeting, for us, town meeting would be a little less daunting, because they'll have our information when they go into your meeting, and not have to be completely wondering what's going on.
And I have to agree, we're gonna lose the crowd
Yeah,
within a couple.
I've been at your
hours.
meetings, they go to usually around 1 o'clock.
yeah. Well, lately, we've been on a record 11,
Good for you.
12 o'clock.
I wasn't there last year.
Yeah.
But still, by the time you get to the bottom of the warrant articles, we're losing people.
Yep.
Right.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
I mean,
We do the same thing in ours.
yeah.
Right, right.
So, in back to back, that's gonna be a tough day for.
Yeah. I mean, we have the same 60 people that show up every year. I mean, we just don't have a big crowd unless we have something big on the agenda, so.
So I guess what I'm hearing is, to be fair to both budgets, everybody wants to go first.
Right,
So since we really can't have everyone going first on the same day, the only way to do that is we go first the week before.
right,
So we still go first.
right. And I think, we've talked about it a couple different times, is that pushing our budget hearing, our little budget hearing meeting,
Mhm.
is the only people that show up are the heads of the department.
Right.
And we're all just kind of staring at each
Right.
other, it's like, do you have any questions? No, why would you? Because you're the ones that created, it's to get our meeting out there a little bit more advertised, so that way, people come. I know that Jim comes, and that's about it from the public.
You know what, if you put in the town calendar that your budget's gonna go up, you may have more people.
Well,
coming.
yeah, well, I threatened it last meeting, so they should be ready.
Right,
As much as it is, we're trying to go more public with all the budgets,
right.
just so that it is out there. So, I don't think we have a qualm of which weekend, who goes to work first on
Right.
which weekend at all. We just, if we're gonna tag team the same day, I just think it's gonna be a real long day.
Does anybody on the board want to make any motion on this, or do you want to keep discussing?
Do we have an actual date, a possibility? Do we
So
have-
ours is the
Thank you.
17th. Our, due to our calendar workout is, March 17th.
17.
Yeah, is that right? Is that
Yeah.
right?
So then the school one would be
The-
before
It must be the
elections.
10th. All right, I'm gonna make a motion that.
Wait,
Wait, hold on one second.
Yeah, I don't
because
think
we
the
have to look
17th.
at voting day.
Is 17th on a weekend?
It was a Saturday.
Saturday.
It is, so it would be the
Okay.
10th.
I wasn't sure that's you.
It would be the 10th.
Yep, so March 17th would be our town meeting, the 10th, which would be the Saturday before.
And voting's the week before that?
The voting
13th.
is,
13th.
Is the
School
13th?
meeting would be before.
yes, I think voting day would be March 13th. So that happened last year too, is that you did have your district meeting prior to knowing who the seats were.
We had that for years.
Right,
Right.
right, so they just get sworn in on town meeting day.
You're gonna have 3 open seats.
Yeah,
Yep,
So
you
it's
guys
gonna
are
be
gonna be
interesting.
busy.
okay. I make a motion that the Stratford School District annual meeting will be held on March 10th, 2018.
I second.
Okay, further discussion?
Do you wanna put a time with that too, just so it's in the motion?
That's good.
How people feel comfortable at 9, or what do people feel comfortable at?
Which is 8:30?
Ours actually, it's usually at 8:30, we may start at 8, but that was when we thought we were doing back to back.
Right, yeah.
So
That
it'll
sounds
most
good.
likely still be at 8:30.
Okay, I'm gonna.
I think 9 would be good.
I think 9 is good.
We,
to
our
get people
our
out.
clientele has a little difference with
Correct.
babysitters,
With, yeah.
Yeah, it's a totally different,
situations
yeah.
like
Right.
that. so.
Do you guys have a moderator?
We have asked, oh my God, his name just escaped me.
Kurt?
Kurt?
Kurt, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, he's gonna do ours too.
I think
So-
he was, I think the ladies swore him in, because it's the women that handle the voter, they're the ones that have to actually make the nomination. Some strange rule in the RSAs.
Crispin. Is it Crispin?
You know,
Crispin?
No.
No, it's the
checklist
keeper of the
lady.
list.
Oh,
the-
check it.
Yeah, the checklist lady.
Supervisor of the check.
Thank you.
Supervisor
There we go.
checklist, right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and further discussion?
You know, it was a nice idea to have the whole community out in one day, but in reality, I think that one budget would suffer. And we want everyone to have a fair chance on their
Yeah.
budgets passed.
Yeah. So promote our little budget hearing to everybody.
Of course, vice versa. I think initially it was to get more community
Yeah.
involvement, you know, I think
Yeah.
it's Brian's brainchild.
Yeah.
It
Well,
was good,
I
good
mean,
intentions.
the logistics for the school board, having to have the attorneys there and having somebody on the payroll at that moment in time, obviously is totally different than us just arguing it out on the floor.
That's a big point for us, that would cost us a
Right.
lot more money to
Yeah,
have
right.
them here all
And
day.
I think that's something, a valid point to be mentioning is that it just,
Cost.
yeah. Here we are talking about budgets, that would be a perfect example right there.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous? So we'll have it the week before, and then we'll get that.
Perfect.
Now, can you get that news out at your
Yes.
window
Yes, I
with the
will.
appropriate?
Yes,
All right.
we will make sure the
And
ladies.
you want it
get
at 9?
There will be
9.
at 9. Okay. Do you have anything else to come before
Oh,
us
I know,
as
it's
from
been a
the?
long time since I've been to one of your meetings.
I think you put us in the little chairs.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Makes you feel like the kids, but thank you for
Stick
coming
around.
tonight. Was there
Yeah.
any other discussion between the selectmen and the board that we need to do?
No, I think we're good. I wish you guys the best of luck.
You too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Check that out. Okay, now, staying on the timeframe would be for our public hearing then. And Dr. Godomsky, can you back up the amount of days and give us
Yep.
an idea of what that would be?
Yep, we'll send the annual meeting time to Gordon and just have him back up the whole.
Perfect. And make sure it's posted within the appropriate amount of time, so the,
One-
I'm sorry,
Excuse
go
me,
ahead.
Bruce, I just realized we didn't do a snow day. Normally we have a snow day, so we have to think about that.
Snow day for that Saturday?
Yeah, normally we have, when we
That would
post
be-
it, normally, yeah, I guess we would, because Wednesday's our second choice, so, because we don't usually post without having a snow day. So when is that Wednesday? If that's what everybody's in agreement with,
13, no,
14th.
14.
14th? And that would be at 6? What time do we usually have, 6 or 7?
Wednesday's 14th.
14 at 6?
Okay.
Personal.
6 people, okay. All right,
And you're taking care of the public hearing date then?
yep,
And that will be posted from your office?
yep.
Thank you, Dr. Okay, let's move on to the regular agenda at this point. Financial business, we have Carol looking at the financials today, which is a little different because I'm usually doing that. Okay, we have the approval of the school board minutes on November 8 and 27.
So moved.
So moved. Is that public and non-public?
Do we have enough public?
I don't know if there is.
I don't think we have enough public, that was,
Just wanted to make sure.
no, that was just a,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, any changes at all? Oh, we have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, discussion on the approval of the school board minutes of those 2 dates.
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Say aye. Okay, and I'm abstaining because unfortunately I had work both those times and I couldn't make either one of them. But I don't have anything for the rest of the calendar year, so it's
Did,
good.
did I just make motion just for the one meeting? We didn't do a special meeting in that motion, did we?
Yeah, I said for the 8th and the 27th.
Okay, all right, so that was for both.
Yeah. Okay, C is superintendent's evaluation. That's usually taken care of by our chairman.
No, I think what we're
But you have
supposed
other
to be doing.
pieces to this?
No, with the information I have, because I actually spoke to our joint board chair today. And each board member should be doing it, and she really needs this for Monday. What we would do is we have a non-public at some point today. And then, and we need the forms. It's right off the, if somebody can print them for us.
I didn't bring the forms tonight.
It's right on the
I-
website, if we can maybe have someone print it for us, so we can do it during non-public, because Sue needs this. We need to get it to Brian, he'll compile it and have it to her for Monday. Thank you.
We'll try to print that off in the next 45 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I almost wrote you an email about
Dr.
that,
Young is gonna be-
but I thought
okay.
you knew, okay.
Good. Report administration, Dr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. My report starts on page 21, but I wanted to start with the a separate item I had emailed earlier today around the request for us to look at the possibility of reducing our music staffing from 2 full-time to 1 in half-time instruction or instructors. And so we did take a look at that. I know it was mentioned a couple times when we were asked to look at what this could look like around some of what Nottingham does, and I did have a conversation with Mr. Chris Souza, who's the principal there at Nottingham as well, in terms of how they're currently structuring their music instruction. And then looked at our own current scheduling for instructional time for both teachers, and have had conversations with both Ms. Atkinson and Mrs. Sullivan just in terms of structure and the kinds of things that they do. And then we really tried to put all those things in consideration in taking a look at what the impact of what it could look like. So I've tried to summarize that here. So essentially, with the 2 positions currently being full-time, you have about 8.5 hours of daily instruction, 8 to 8.5, depending on the day with intervention times and some other pieces, but it's essentially 8.5. So we would be going down to 6 hours of daily instructional hours is kind of what the impact looks like in terms of the daily instructional time for music. So you can see the impacts on that, I think just by necessity. I've listed, to me, some of the top 3 would be really having to narrow pretty significantly the music curriculum from what we're currently doing now with general music course and band instruction. I think we would lose pretty significantly on the small group lessons that are happening for band. I just don't see a way for us to do full band instruction with a reduction and still retain much of the small group lessons that are happening at most grade levels, with somewhere between 3 to 5 students typically in those small groups currently. And then I mentioned here the balanced instructional time between general music course and band, and that simply means that we would just have to make some decisions, probably emphasizing, it would be more difficult to be able to emphasize each equally. We'd probably have to make some decisions on what we're going to emphasize, general music course and band, more so than one over the other potentially. So I think we would have to make some decisions on that. These other are potentials. The curtailment or loss of jazz band. Right now, jazz band is being offered to kiddos at 8 o'clock in the morning because it's in history and past practice that's happened for, I think it's happened for a long time, which is wonderful. I'm not sure, between jazz band and 4th grade band at our entry-level band group, we probably would have to make a decision over those 2, is what I think it would likely look like if we go to the halftime position. And then I mentioned here, I know that some of what at least Nottingham has done is they have some band instruction time during their intervention block, which we have some of that here as well. And then they've been also offering band after school. So
Keep in mind, Scott, but
yeah,
one teacher does it over there, one teacher,
yeah.
and they have 100 more students.
Right. Again, my concern would be if we had the staffing or the availability of staff to do an after-school band session, then we do have quite a few students who are both student athletes currently and in band. So for those kids, they really would probably have to make a decision. Just I don't see a way for them to be able to do both. I mentioned a couple other things to consider, just that providing sort of more full band, particularly band, but really music instruction in general, regardless of band particularly, just gives kids more opportunities to really involve themselves and have a little bit more choice. And I know I mentioned this previously, but I thought it was worth mentioning again. Co-Brown's feedback has consistently been that Stratford kiddos come into the program really well prepared for music, particularly for band, in the entry to their program. And the reality is that at least it's been, I think, historically true, it's certainly been true for a number of years, past the time that I've been here, that our Stratford kiddos have made up a majority of the band going in. There's great things happening at the other schools, so it's in no way saying there isn't. I just know that that's been part of the feedback that the Co-Brown Music Department has given our own music teachers over the years. So in light of those pieces, obviously there's a financial impact, the positive around the potential of reducing to a half-time or 1.5 positions for music, but I just think ultimately I would recommend it, respectfully recognize that the board has a decision that they need to make, but my recommendation would be that we not reduce to 1.5 positions. We stay with the 2 full-time teaching positions because I feel like, could we still have a good music program? I mean, I think we could. I'm not saying that we can't do some good things with 1.5 teaching positions for music, but I do think it really would lead to an adverse impact, at least over and against what we've been doing here for the last number of years. I'd say at least 10 years or so in the building where there's the real commitment to the music instruction. So that would be my recommendation based on having taken a look at that question.
I just want to make a comment, 2 comments actually. One, jazz band is held at 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't see how that would be affected. Secondly, Co-Brown has also noted, I think I reported this in my last report from the deans, that there was concern about the number of students coming out prepared for chorus at Co-Brown. And I know that's a different instructor than band, but we used to have a wonderful chorus program, and now we're having less and less students coming out, participating in chorus in our school, and then following through at Co-Brown. So that, sort of balances that. The band, yes, but not chorus. They are concerned about that.
I think that, I don't know what, I'm not sure what jazz band would look like. I realize, as you're saying, it's at 8 o'clock, but
8 o'clock in the morning, so before the school day starts, just once a week. My kids, I've had all my kids have
Twice a
been
week.
jazz band, so it's
Twice a week,
Yeah.
it's Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah.
yeah,
And so parents have to make that
But-
commitment to get their kids early to school.
whether or not you
on
have
Tuesdays
a teacher that would be
There on Tuesdays and
yeah,
Thursdays.
willing to be there at that time, I think is a legitimate question. I don't know the answer to
Or a
it.
requirement, if you want the job.
Just could be at 8 o'clock, you can't require it at 8.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Mhm.
How many students are in band? I'm looking at data.
Like in terms of, I can't give you an exact number, just in terms of ballpark.
Sure.
I don't, 40, 50, it's a pretty significant group.
That's
Um,
low compared to what it used to be.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
much
again,
lower than it used
I'm
to
just
be.
thinking of when I look out and see, the kids in band during a full band session, so that's, yeah.
4th and up, or are you talking 7, 8?
What's your thoughts for 4th and up? Do you think I'm off?
Yeah, because I thought that was the equivalent of almost 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
And then you have that same amount from 5th and 6th.
Right.
Because
Okay,
they do small groups of each grade level, they do full band at each grade level, and then jazz band is completely separate from any of the grade levels.
So maybe we need some more information as far as knowing how many kids are participating, because that's interesting to know. And if there's a drop in the participation level, that's also,
I don't know if there is, again, I'm probably pretty well underestimating the number, just thinking off the top of my head. So, I mean, that's easy information to get, certainly.
how about the chorus participation?
Well, I'm thinking, for instance, we had our 5th or 8th grade choral or chorus concert last week. We probably had 40, 45 kids over there.
How many in the jazz band?
I'm sorry.
How many participate in the early morning jazz band?
I'm not sure, Bruce. I think there were a good number. I can get that information.
How many periods are taught by the band personnel?
Essentially, there's 4 blocks of instruction, and then she has 20-minute small group lessons that she does throughout the day. There's probably, depending on the day, 3 or 4 of those that take place with with different groups, so a fourth grade small group, a fifth grade small group. 6, 7, 8.
Now, is that comparable to a full-time schedule?
It is.
It is.
It is in totality. So basically, when I say 8.5, the two positions are 8.5 instructional hours. It's essentially almost a split. So 4.25 for general music and chorus, and 4.25 for band.
And does that include general music?
I'm
Does
sorry.
that include general music, or is it a general music too?
So the general
Not
music
everything is
is,
chorus and band, I mean, there's music being taught also.
yes,
By
Right.
one instructor.
one instructor.
Not the person who teaches band. There's
But
only-
yeah. I was
Yeah,
reading that
yeah,
out.
so her, that's a typical teaching, they both have essentially typical teaching loads.
Yeah,
The difference with band is that the instructional blocks, she has the 4 instructional blocks, and then she has those small group instructional times, so it breaks out differently. It looks a little bit different on the schedule than,
and where are those kids
Typical.
pulled out for the 20-minute small blocks? I mean, obviously the 4 blocks, when they're having a related arts or a unified art,
right?
right, when is that right? Am I right on that? Or am I thinking something incorrect?
No, I think that's correct, essentially. I'd have to look at literally where they're coming out of the classes for the 20 minutes for the small group and where that's happening, because it happens at different portions of the day depending on the grade level. So I can't really say this is where each one happens and this is what they're missing, or not what they're missing, but what is going on in the other part of the
I
instruction.
kind of agree with Deb right now on that we need more data.
Okay.
What, the data of how many students in each block, in each of those 4 blocks, how
Yeah.
many are you pulling out for the 20-minute lesson? How the schedule looks compared to other unified arts instructors. I'd like to see the comparable time to make sure, I believe everything you're saying, I just have to see it visually to make any kind of
So in the number of
intelligent
kids,
decision.
Yeah, that's easy.
the different
information to get,
bands
sure.
and chorus, so we know all
Sure.
the participants.
Sure, yeah.
And by grade, it would be nice to,
For,
as
for
Kathy was saying,
participation? or-
yeah, for participation
Yeah.
in all around. Well,
Sure.
is there any other data there? that you open?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to find out how many kids per 20-minute lesson are being taught.
I can do that. I mean, again, I've asked that question. I think it's 3 to 5 typically, but I can,
Okay.
at least for the small group lessons.
Did you want that for chorus too?
Do we have a small group course, or we just have one?
No, for the choral amount for.
Yes.
Just in terms of total participation?
Yes,
or-
and my grade also, that would be great.
Okay.
Tthink you.
Okay. Thank you, I think
That would be great.
if no one else has any objection to this, let's get the data on the table, this is next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Informed decision.
All right, my report starts on page 21. Really, the focus of my report is essentially on what we're doing as a professional learning community, is really the focus. So the first item is just what we're continuing to look at in terms of competency-based education. A guaranteed and viable curriculum is the most important prerequisite, sort of, first step, which is what we've been working on with the curriculum alignment work, and we're making tremendous headway with that. So you get a bit of both of these in my report. The first item, though, is specifically in competency-based education. If you look at page 23, there's just one sample page from a rubric that we're going to be using with the curriculum crew, the curriculum team, at our meeting next Thursday to really evaluate where we are in terms of readiness for competency-based education. So you can see it's a typical rubric with indicators of performing, developing, or initiating. And then the indicators on the left-hand side, for instance, framework of standards and competencies, you can see is on there. That's really been our focus this year. So we were in the initiating phase, we're moving towards the developing phase, which is good. We have some competencies that are embedded in the curriculum reports that we've created, but they need to be really worked on, so there's a true performance assessment piece to it, but we're moving in that area. Similar with cognitive demand, we're probably initiating, developing, somewhere in there, and then a system of calibration that's a place where we're really just, if anything, in the initiating phases, we would begin to look at competencies. So this is one page of the rubric that's about 3 or 4 pages long, similar kinds of indicators with the same performing, developing, or initiating piece. So what we want to do with the curriculum team is review it and then really begin to divide out into work groups, because we have really a very representative team along the curriculum group. K-8 is well represented on that group. And based on what we see as our priorities from evaluating ourselves with this rubric, really begin to work on in the next half of the year in sort of our own smaller professional learning teams on the top maybe 2 or 3 pieces that we need to look at to really put ourselves in a stronger position for competency-based education, especially as we hope to really finish out the curriculum alignment work or significantly finalize it near the end of the year. So that's just a snapshot of sort of the thinking, what we want to do with focusing again on competency-based education and the curriculum team being a big part of
If we stay on competencies for a minute, I noticed that breakdown on page 23 is based on Brian Stack.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to bring a book about Brian Stack. Are you reading this one?
I haven't read it yet, but
That is new one.
That's a new one.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah, it was at the-
two, Brian and,
I just started it tonight, so,
Yeah,
today, it's really good.
it is
As
good.
far as
And
competency.
I did ask him about sharing this, and he was fine with that.
He's from Kingston. He's
That's right,
a New
yeah.
Hampshire guy.
Yeah. So
Wait a
the
minute,
conference
who's the
that we.
Vanderells?
Jonathan.
Who is that?
I don't know.
Oh, John, yeah.
He was the principal in Newton,
That we-
New Hampshire, the elementary
But it's,
school.
I've been reading part of that already, and it's very interesting of how you bring it out to the staff to begin with. How you initiate with the staff, how you get the understanding. Too little, staff makes the determinations on what a competency is and may not be the correct one. Too much, they feel like you're overbearing and you're shoving it down their throat, so. I mean, those words are right in the book, and it's really interesting on that.
Yeah.
And it
no,
says that
it's-
New Hampshire and Iowa are the ones that have actually started competencies more than anybody
I
else in
think
the
they're one of
United
the
States.
leaders. That is
Yeah.
true. The conference that the team attended this summer was
Yeah.
their third conference that they've held now. And they had the book there as well, as a sort of an unveil at that time,
I
so.
just picked that up, so I thought,
Yeah.
thought I'd bring it and show you tonight in case you had it and didn't have it, so.
It's good stuff. I haven't had a chance to get it yet, but,
It's laid out in a very easy, readable fashion, and it does make sense. It's very sequential on how do you initiate competencies within the school district, and how to make them relevant to the school
so
district.
maybe one of our small groups out of our curriculum team can make a book study out of that one.
Yeah, that would be great. I think it would help.
So it's good work that we're doing, and, we're on our way. This next bullet point on the report around what we're doing to track focus standards throughout the school year, if you look at the note below, where it starts with process, this has been our process with our curriculum, really our data teams at each grade level have been following this frame. So we take our curriculum reports that we've generated in each core content area, and we select over a unit of instruction or a meaningful section of instruction, 2 to 3 focus standards that we know are essential to the success of student learning for that unit. So they select those 2 to 3 focus standards, 5 maybe, usually it's more like 2 to 3, and they teach it, and then we come back a couple meetings when the instruction has been delivered, we review those same focus standards and say, what was the depth of student learning? So we're starting that conversation around depth of knowledge, which is a big part of certainly of competencies, developing your own sort of a taxonomy of skills or of knowledge, levels of knowledge, and then they record, was it mastered, was it introduced, was it, how well was it learned? So we're doing that as a process to, one, help really finalize at the end of the year what our curriculum, our draft curriculum reports will be, so that we know this is not only what's on the page of the curriculum report, but this is what we're actually delivering instructionally, because we've gone through this intentional process of tracking those standards throughout the year, and making sure there's linkage between the standards and what we're doing in the classroom. And one of the other benefits is that as conversations happen with the receiving team, the receiving teachers for the next year, that team, the sending team, can bring their curriculum reports and say, here's what you can certainly expect your students to know and understand. And we can use that as a reference so that receiving teams really get a better and clearer picture of what students know and are able to do for their grade level. That allows them to anticipate instruction for the beginning of the year where they might need to focus on some areas, or know that, nope, these areas are all set, and they'll know where they can start with instruction for students as their year begins. So there's a couple different benefits to that.
Can I just go back to this thing? Does anybody know Jonathan Vanderhouse? Do you know him? Is his father Jerry Vanderhouse?
That I don't,
Is he from Hampton?
that I,
Or Northampton?
yeah.
I taught with his father, so he was a principal and died a few years ago. That's why, I mean, how many people have that name from the seacoast? He looks like his father.
Maybe.
If it is his father.
If it is, he looks like his father. It's just,
So this process is something we're doing at each of the grade levels. I think it's giving us some focus, again, especially between how standards and instruction need to be linked, so there's some good things happening there. Teacher workshop, Dr. Driscoll will be with us from Revolutionary Schools, and we're kind of furthering the curriculum alignment work on January 2nd. We're going to be having cross-team conversations, so the 4th grade with 5th grade, and the 5th grade with 6th grade, and so on. As we look at these curriculum reports and some of the tracking that we've done, we want to sort of take a mid-year review of what's been taught and really calibrate the curriculum reports with her to reflect, to refine them essentially, so that they really reflect what we're doing in terms of instruction. So we're looking forward to that. We'll do an agenda for it in all the 9 yards, but I've had an initial conversation with Dr. Driscoll that's been good in terms of planning for that. One of my last items is just, we have a lot of great things happening, and I think I sent this out to the board as well, just even the celebration points that are on the back of my report, I think I sent out. But Shelley Welch, who teaches in 2nd grade for us, nominated Laura Nazmiga, one of our 1st grade teachers, for one of the top teachers in New Hampshire, and in the recent edition of Parenting New Hampshire, it's actually this edition this month, she was recognized as one of the top teachers in New Hampshire, so just a shout out to her for the great effort that she has, and the thoughtfulness too of her colleague, Mrs. Welch, to see and to share that with them, so kind of
should we send something from the board, a letter,
Yes.
recognizing
Absolutely.
Lauren's accomplishment, recognition?
I'll draft one up.
How long has she been with us, Scott, a couple of years? 3 years?
third.
Third year, yeah.
I believe, yeah.
Yeah, I know she's very nice.
Yeah, she's really outstanding. My other celebration points are, again, there's a number of them. I wanted to point out for full-day kindergarten that we are beginning to see some of that payoff of the additional instructional time in some of our data team meetings.